Let's take your temperature, kid. Say ah.
This is the WB.
This is the WB Television Network, the network for young adults.
Growing up as a kid who didn't always have cable could be rough. Cartoon Network was like that super cool kid that was awesome to hang around, but you had to give him money to be friends. But on those days when Dexter and Powerpuff Girls were beyond my grasp, there was no channel that held it down like the WB. While it's mostly known now for its trashy teen shows as the CW, back in the day, it couldn't be beat when it came to shows. Maury and Jerry Springer for sick days, Kids WB for the weekends, and once syndication kicked in, I even had stuff like South Park and Family Guy to go along with my Reba reruns. Speaking of, on the off chance you're watching this, Reba, my DMs are open. Just saying.
Say, let's even things up about one on this side.
I even got all the random movies I could ever want. Was Con Air the most appropriate thing to show right after the Saturday morning cartoons? I don't know, but I blame this channel for most of my weird taste.
I said, put the bunny back in the box.
But kids' cartoons weren't the only thing WB dipped their toes into. For a while, they also tried to compete with networks like Fox and make their own primetime adult animation. They made 4 shows in total, and each was basically canceled as soon as it came out.
Great, we can just put that into your retirement account and make it go to work for you, and it's gone.
What?
I swear, like every time they made one, they were like, yeah, this is the Simpsons killer, before promptly remembering that animation cost money. Then they would cancel it and repeat the whole process over again.
Why do you always do these stupid things? And why do you always announce them to me before you do them? Are you trying to get a rise out of me?
But these shows deserved a lot better than that, and today, we're gonna find out why. I'm your host, and 13-episode cult hit, D'Angelo Edwards. And today, I'm taking my hat off to the WB Primetime Cartoons.
Hey there, meathead. What are you watching?
Oh, I thought I'd check out the Warner Brothers network.
100% on the WB. Another bad show that no one will see. I need a drink.
Boy, was I a sap. If I could do it all over again, I'd dumpster that nice guy crap and be an arrogant jerk. Because when the final buzzer sounds, it's the jerks who always win.
Virgin through high school.
And then some.
To kick things off, let's start with the first show they made for prime time. I hope you're ready to trade that motorcycle in for a minivan, because we are talking Baby Blues. Based on the popular comic strip created by Rick Kirkman and Jerry Scott, Baby Blues follows the lives of Daryl and Wanda McPherson. Whoa, are those your noses, or are you just happy to see me?
Oh, wow!
The comic shows their life together as they raise their 3 kids, Zoe, Hammy, and Ren. At least, that's how it was by the time I started reading it, but it actually started with the birth of just Zoe, and the show follows the same path. We watch as the McPhersons navigate their new lives as parents, while dealing with their crazy neighbors, ditzy babysitter, and whatever life throws their way. Now, I watched a bit of this when I was a kid, and I remember liking it, but now that I've gone back and revisited it, I really like it. It's your standard animated family sitcom, but with a couple of things that really help it stand out. First off, I can't really think of another show like this that just deals with raising your first kid. Like, sure, most of these kind of shows have a baby. You got your Maggies and Stewies, but those shows usually have a couple of other kids to round out the cast. But here, we only have Daryl, Wanda, and Zoe, which makes for an interesting dynamic. These are new parents. They're gonna mess up a lot, and because they're new, it doesn't feel weird that they're not perfect yet. The two of them, however, are really good together, and I love that they made them feel like people first and parents second.
Okay, how about my uncle?
Nope.
I didn't say which one.
Don't matter. Don't like any of them.
Fine, you hate everyone in my family except me.
Don't flatter yourself.
Not to say that they don't care about Zoe, because they both definitely do. It's just that mom and dad aren't their entire personality, and I can appreciate that. Daryl is the responsible one of the pair. Uptight and practical, he tends to just keep his head low while providing a good life for his family.
I got no busy anymore. Because of you, baby guy.
My name's Daryl, though Saying it out loud, I'm realizing it's not half as intimidating as Baby Guy, which is probably the reason you selected that particular nickname.
Shut up, bitch.
That's even better.
While he does care for them deeply, sometimes he lets his jealousy get the best of them. He wants to live a carefree life and buy expensive things, but that's kind of hard on a wage slave salary.
Isn't it great about Carl's new job?
Yeah, great.
We're so happy these days. It's nice to see other people happy too.
But to be fair, dude cannot complain. He's got a house and a car. If this took place in today's time, he'd basically be an elite. Wanda, on the other hand, is a stay-at-home mom and kind of a free spirit. She tends to get carried away with new ideas, and she's got the impulse control of Snoop Dogg at a Jack in the Box.
Look what I found!
Whoa, cetaceous!
Wail on, Mrs. Mac.
Call me Wanda!
Okay, Wanda.
She's definitely still a capable mother, but she does start to worry that maybe that's all that's left for her to be. So she tends to get swept away in whatever she's involved with. Because of these different views on life, the two of them tend to compete when it comes to being parents. And although they might not want to admit it, they both keep a personal score when it comes to raising Zoe.
Daryl, that's crazy! You make it sound like we're both keeping score all the time.
But we are! Hasn't it crossed your mind who's getting credit for today?
No.
Wanda.
60-40 split since I carried her from the car.
See?
Even with these differing personalities though, there's never a time where you don't think these guys are made for each other. Daryl adores his wife, and although he may get distracted from time to time, he's content with his life with Wanda and Zoe, and the same goes for her.
I'm an open book. Wanda, won't you read my heart, please?
Please! Please, baby, please, baby, please, baby, 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 please.
The other side characters are great too. Their babysitter Busy is always fun to have around, bringing in the perspective of the younger generation. And any character voiced by Nicole Sullivan is always going to be a favorite. She has a really sweet relationship with Zoe too, being more of a big sister than just a babysitter.
Those aren't real. And, oh, these people adopted a baby, but it was a publicity move to cover up the fact that they're both gay. Yes, they are. Yes, they are gay. That's right.
Though there is an episode where she has to quit because she's offered more money to babysit the neighbor kids. That felt a little out of character, but she was sad about the whole thing, so maybe she just really needed the money. Speaking of the neighbors, they're some of the best characters. The Bittermans are the exact opposite of the McPhersons. They have 3 kids already, and man does it show. The husband Carl is constantly giving Daryl unsolicited advice and showing off in front of him, which makes Daryl feel kinda small.
Too bad your fancy college degree doesn't stack up next to my dad's union connections.
Rodney, what'd I tell you about the less fortunate?
They're a drain on society.
And?
Sir, but for the grace of God go us.
That's right. Because they're young, huh?
But the two of them have been shown getting along on several different occasions, bonding over their shared roles as the man of the house. Alcohol doesn't hurt either.
Hey, I got a chocolate milk if you feel like a margarita.
His wife Melinda forms a pretty tight friendship with Wanda, and although she seems a little weathered, she loves her life with her husband and 3 kids, though sometimes she could definitely use a break.
So, what are you painting this week?
It's a mother spider trapped in her web, being eaten by her babies.
I love their kids though. Their daughter Megan is just going around laughing and shouting all the time. Their youngest Shelby is never seen without his bat, which he uses to break every and anything he can get his hands on. And the oldest, Rodney, while a total brat, shares a sweet connection with Zoe, and the two of them are often seen playing together. And you can't forget Daryl's co-worker Kenny, a smooth-talking guy who would rather be at the strip club than home with his family. He always greets Daryl the same way, and it always makes me laugh. Just the perfect delivery.
Hey, Captain. Hey, Captain. Morning, Captain.
What are you doing?
Giving you a second chance.
Besides all the entertaining characters, the show is also just really nice to look at. I miss these old shows based on comics that really lean into the style. Everything looks so smooth and it's a real treat for the eyes. Though sometimes it looks a little too good. Like, what are you doing? They were just burning money on this show. This is a sitcom, none of this is necessary. I also like that despite how grounded the show is, it can still get weird sometimes. Like personifying Daryl's envy or just making Busy's stepdad the real-life Drew Carey. It's good stuff. Though everything about this show seems fine on the surface, there was a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes that was a little rough. Like, this show was stuck in development hell for years, and by the time it was actually done, they didn't even air the pilot first. Which is crazy because the pilot is about the birth of Zoe. It sets up the whole show. The creators were also a bit lukewarm on the show. It was a bit more raunchy than the comic, and while they liked some of it, they did wish it stick closer to the tone of the actual comic strip. The WB also tried to change the name of the show to Bluesville, but they changed their mind for brand recognition. I kinda get it though. I don't know how you market a show named after postpartum depression.
He's beautiful.
What's his name?
The worst part, however, is that an entire second season was basically completed, and it has still never been aired. While the validity of this claim has been debated, with producer Toby Jones saying it never moved past pre-production, Rick Kirkman himself said in an article with Bubble Blabber, Season 2 was ordered, produced, and nearly complete. All that was left was to replace the temp music cues and sound effects, and possibly some minor editing. All animation was done. Full episodes like that exist, but I haven't seen them, but my partner has. It is incorrect to say there was only pre-production work and not much more. It is crazy that something as expensive as a whole season of animation can just be left to rot. Like, let me see it. It's been 20 years, you don't want it. Especially since the show's characters can't even be shown in the strip. I miss them. Hopefully we'll get it one day, but at least we got what we got. Baby Blues is a fun show with great animation about starting a family, and if the premise doesn't win you over, the charm definitely will. I think it's safe to say that nothing like this has been done before. Today's video was brought to you by FlexiSpot. Are you sick of how working from home is slowly wrecking your back? Of course you are. That thing is your moneymaker. Instead of doing that, take your home office situation to the next level with FlexiSpot. Their OC3B ergonomic office chair is, no joke, one of the best chairs I've ever owned. Its ergonomic design ensures comfort for your back, and the passive lumbar support really helps for those long hours. I used to think lumbar support was a myth, but this chair proved me wrong. The high-density mesh seat cushion is great, and no matter if you're rocking a flat Stanley or you're caked up to high heaven, it ensures a good fit. The chair is also fully versatile, with adjustable height, headrest, backrest, and arms to make sure it fits just right. It even includes lock-in tilt control for those breaks we won't tell the boss about. It was really easy to put together too, it took less than 30 minutes. And did I mention the built-in hanger for all your hoodie needs? What, you thought that was my hand? Haha, no, I have people for that. If you want to get your own, you can use my link in the description. Once again, if you want to get your own OC3B ergonomic office chair, you can do so with my link in the description. Thanks again to FlexiSpot, and happy sitting.
Hey Milo, you want to go loiter at the A to Z with the in crowd?
Are you kidding? This is everything I've ever wanted!
That was kind of a gayer response than I'd hoped for.
I hope you enjoyed that wholesome start, because we're about to take a hard left with this next one. Get ready to take a trip down to the valley where the chemicals spill, because we're looking at the Oblongs. In 1999, a book called Creepy Susie and 13 Other Tragic Tales for Troubled Children came out. It was a parody of all the overly child-friendly storybooks that would come out but aimed at adults. Instead of kids getting along, it showed them cutting off each other's heads and eating their parents. It could get really nuts, but because it was all done in good fun and just so out there, I don't think it really offended anyone, you know, besides the usual crowd. The book was created by Angus Oblong, an obviously very well-adjusted individual. Just don't ask him about magnets. But anyway, I guess the book got kinda popular, or at least people saw the potential in it, because Fox, the WB, and ABC got into a bidding war to win the rights to turn the book into a TV show, with the WB winning in the end. With Jace Richdale of Simpsons fame joining in, the book was turned into the Oblongs, taking several characters from it and making up the difference themselves, taking its name from Angus. At first glance, the Oblongs might just appear as a mean-spirited cartoon, making fun of people for being different. But in reality, it's actually a pretty progressive show that makes fun of the people that society considers normal.
Look, a novelty license plate that says Debbie.
This show doesn't make fun of the outcast, it stands with them. And although a lot of it hasn't aged the best, for the most part, it's a fun little commentary on the haves and have-nots. The show follows the Oblongs, a family that lives in the valley, a poorer neighborhood that is directly below the hills, the place where all the rich people live. Because of the hills dumping their pollution down to the valley, nearly everybody that lives there has some kind of physical or mental disability. And this goes for the Oblongs as well. Milo, the main character and loose adaptation of Angus Oblong as a kid, suffers from nearly every attention disorder you can have, being a manic little ball of ADHD.
I know! I'll switch to regular school. I'm cured of all my problems.
You really think so? What about your attention deficit disorder? Milo!
His brothers Biff and Chip are conjoined twins, and Bob Oblong, the father of the family, don't even get me started on him. He's a chocoholic.
Hello, Gunther. I slipped again.
We watch as they deal with surviving in a world that isn't always fair to the little people, but as long as they're together, they know they'll be okay. There are 3 major things that I think make the Oblongs a good show. The first is that it's genuinely funny. It doesn't just make jokes at the character's expense, it's genuinely witty with some pretty good dialogue and just ridiculous situations.
Is it Friday yet? Nope. Thank God it's Monday. Is it me, or does the poison taste different today?
It is the 2000s, so expect to hear a lot of gay jokes. But even those have their moments sometimes.
Blaine, Jared, Debbie, mwah, mwah, mwah. How come he got 2 fruity kisses and I only got 1?
There's also a trans character that I can't tell if it's good rep or not.
Uh-oh.
Everyone likes her, but there are a few jokes that come off a little yeesh.
Anita, do you have a brother?
Yeah, sure, why not?
Overall though, the show is pretty funny and you never know what's gonna happen next. One minute Milo has a crush on an alien girl, and the next Bob's got a new job as a lifeguard thanks to a robot suit. While Angus Oblong was a little disappointed in the show overall, which I understand, the show basically sanded off all the edges that the original book had and made it a lot more audience friendly. But this was probably for the best. It only got 13 episodes in the way it is. I don't think a show about a mom beating their kid with a hunk of frozen meat would have done any better. But as an offbeat sitcom, I think it works really well. The second thing that makes this show work is just the look of it. I'm not one of those modern cartoon haters, but man, stuff back then just looked different. Just look at those bold outlines, the grungy feeling of the rundown valley, it's great. The animation is smooth, and although not as ambitious as Baby Blues, it's still pretty good. The backgrounds are absolutely gorgeous though, and it goes to show that when you put the work in, backgrounds can be just as, if not more important than the actual character designs. Like, they painted these, and the dirty geometrical style does a great job selling the squalor these guys live in. Bring back shows that look like this. And lastly, the most important thing that makes this work are the characters themselves. There's a sense that all these hardships have really brought the Oblong family closer together. They bicker and they fight, but you can still tell they'll do anything for each other. Even Pickles, the mother of the family, left her cushy life up on the hills because she fell in love with Bob. And even though all her hair fell out, she wouldn't trade her life for the world.
Now, I found a great bar right next to a wig store, and I get to wake up every morning next to the sweetest man in the world.
The side characters are fun too. Milo's friends are great, especially Helga, who kinda feels like a more pathetic version of early Cartman, desperately clinging to her delusions.
You live in a fantasy world, don't you, Helga?
What was that? I was thinking about my hundreds and hundreds of boyfriends.
And don't even get me started on creepy Susie. The internet latched onto her in a way that I could have never expected. That's the power of goth girls, I suppose. I even drew her once myself, and Angus Oblong liked it. The voice cast is also stacked. Gene Smart, Billy West, Pamela Adlon, the list goes on. But I was really surprised to learn that Will Ferrell played Bob. You can barely hear it.
A sexy woman. Yeah, large-breasted, full-hipped woman who craves a spanking. It's out of tune.
Overall, there's a real sense of camaraderie present in the show that takes it from just a mean cartoon that makes fun of people for being different to a show that celebrates those differences. I'm probably 100% reading too deep into this, but YouTube beats up these sappy explanations, and I got bills to pay, so I felt personally touched. Just like you should personally touch that subscribe. The Oblongs is a nasty little show with a heart of gold, and it shows that a life stuck in the mud can be a life worth living, as long as you have someone to share it with.
Those are some of my cartoons, and those are some designs for an animated TV series I was thinking about.
Oh God, not another animated series.
I know. It's like everyone and their brother has one now.
Next up, we have got a doozy. Not only is this one my favorite show on the list, it's just one of my favorite shows in general. Giving off vibes that to this day still haven't been matched, we have Mission Hill.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Man, have you even lived if you've never woken up to this at like 3 a.m? Mission Hill is a very special show that could have only been made by the people who made it. Created by two absolute legends in the field, Bill Oakley and Josh Weinstein, who have worked on everything from The Simpsons to Regular Show. They're also the two guys responsible for what I feel is the funniest episode of The Simpsons, Bart vs. Australia.
You call that a knife? This is a knife.
That's not a knife, that's a spoon.
All right, you win. I see you've played knifey spoony before.
Mission Hill is one of those rare shows that, if you're the right person, will never stop thinking about, and I am one of those people. Bill and Josh started work on the show in 1997, after wrapping up their time on The Simpsons. They wanted to make a show with the sensibilities of The Simpsons, but for a more mature audience that maybe hadn't settled down into family life yet. Bill Oakley was quoted saying, "The audience we're going for is one that's sophisticated, that likes high and low humor, that's very savvy in animation. It's not setup, punchline, it's observational humor."
Toby?
Penis, 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 penis.
I think this describes the show perfectly, and it describes me as well. Just because I like to watch stuff that challenges me and does things differently, it doesn't mean I'm above the more juvenile stuff. I can like Citizen Kane and Family Guy.
Oh, in the kitchen, Meg!
But let's actually get into the show itself. It follows the life of Andy French, an aspiring cartoonist living with his two friends and roommate Jim and Posey, having to adjust to life once his younger brother Kevin comes to live with him.
Hi, Andy. So, guys, are we going to be your roommates?
What?
We get to see the two of them fight, get each other into and out of trouble, and ultimately grow closer as brothers. This is a show about growing as a person, but with Andy and Kevin at the opposite sides of the spectrum. Andy is a lazy good-for-nothing. Even though he has real talent in cartooning, he might actually be able to make something of himself if he could just stop screwing around.
I'm really looking forward to your party tomorrow.
Oh, me too. We deserve a break from this frenzied go-go corporate rat race.
Kevin, on the other hand, is so sheltered and uptight that anything outside of math homework sends him into a panic attack. He's responsible, but to the point of it doing more harm than good to him. But as the two of them live together, aspects of each other start to rub off. Andy starts to put in more effort, Kevin learns to loosen up, and they grow into better people. It's some of the best character arc stuff I've ever seen in an animated sitcom. I can especially relate to Andy. As an artist that was stuck in a dead-end job, I really get him. Andy is a good cartoonist. I mean, his stuff is practically Kafkaesque, but to pay the bills, he's stuck working at a mattress warehouse, wasting time that could be used to create. And although he comes off as lazy, let me tell you, when you spend all your time at a 9 to 5, of course you're gonna spend any free time you have goofing and having fun. People have no idea how much effort goes into creating art. It's definitely fun, but it takes time and energy, and you don't always got that in you after dealing with stupid customers all day.
May I please take your order?
Kevin and Andy aren't the only good characters though. The side characters are great as well. Like Kevin's best friend since high school, Jim. Everyone has that one friend that just seems like the chillest dude on the planet. But somehow, they're also the most put together. For the whole show, it just seems like Jim is as lazy and aimless as Andy, but it turns out that he's actually a high-ranking executive at an ad company. A company that he eventually convinces to hire Andy as an artist at. He's also voiced by Brian Posehn, who is like at least in my top 15 voice actors. Such an iconic voice.
I found these in Andy's closet. I think they're pornographic videotapes.
No way. Andy's porno tapes would never fit into a box that small.
Andy's other roommate, Posey, doesn't get as much time as Jim, but her spacey flower child vibe is really fun, and she gets some great moments.
We must summon our deepest core of goodness to help us travel to the sacred city of light within. Summoning. What the hay will take my Miata?
But the coolest side characters are Gus and Wally, a surprisingly well done gay couple, especially for the early 2000s.
What are you looking at? We made up!
Just another way this show was ahead of its time. I could honestly go on and on about this show, but to be honest, you're better off just watching it yourself. Every episode is on YouTube, and don't feel bad about watching it there, because the creators have gone on record saying that they're okay with people pirating it, given how badly the WB treated the show. So feel free to grab your peg leg and get to work.
I'll steal it! No one will ever know!
But if there's one thing that I can't finish this video without mentioning, it's the art style. This is urban atmosphere perfection, and there is no other show that has the same vibes as Mission Hill. The vibrant colors, the line weight and all the outlines, and the nearly abstract backgrounds turn this show into a feast for the eyes. A lot of backgrounds in adult cartoons nowadays are technically impressive, but they often forget to set a mood with their colors. Mission Hill does not have this problem. I don't know how to explain it, but these tones, these colors, this is exactly how I remember it looking on those nights walking through the city with my friends, drunk and loving life, and it never fails to hit. Bill and Josh brought on industry veteran Lauren McMullen to both direct and lead art design, and she killed it. It was a difficult process because this show was still done on cells, so they had to pick colors that would have that distinct neon look to them while still looking good on film.
Part of our thinking was to have really bright, vibrant colors that you wouldn't normally see in animated shows, which is why we used radiant paints.
There are certain types of cell vinyl made in the 90s, I'm sure they don't make them anymore now, that have an actual kind of fluorescent quality, especially in the yellows and some of the reds.
And it doesn't really actually translate that well on a TV screen. It's much better in print. But since the show was, I gather it was the last hand-painted show ever done, pretty much, we got to use these radiant paints that were hand-painted on the cells.
It was an insane balancing act, but her and her team pulled it off flawlessly, resulting in a show that looks both modern and classic. This show is actually a big influence on the cartoon I'm currently making, Screen Time, both in style and character-wise. I don't know, as someone who hasn't quite put down roots, stories about adults who haven't started families yet appeal to me the most, and along with the great aesthetic, I didn't stand a chance. This show still has a very strong cult following, and they even did a road show recently showing off a restored version of the show that I missed, but I'm not bitter.
I don't even want to be around anymore.
While Bill and Josh have been fighting to get more of the show made, with several episodes already written, as of now, there are no plans to see any more Mission Hill anytime soon. But I really do hope we get to see more of it, because there is truly nothing else like it.
That's some glove.
Alright, So with the first 3 shows, I have history with all of them. Some of them I caught on the WB and some of them I caught on reruns. But this last show, I had never heard of until making this video. And I've heard of everything. So imagine my shock when I found out that not only was this an adult animated show I had never seen, but it's an adult action sci-fi animated show I've never seen. Created by a little known director, I doubt you've heard of him, Steven Spielberg or something. Who? Where the heck did this show come from, and why have I never heard of it? Doesn't matter now, I found it, so let's take a look at it. Invasion America follows the story of David Carter, your normal, everyday teenager. At least it seems like that at first. However, it turns out that the dad he never knew is actually an alien from the planet Tyrus that fled to Earth after a civil war broke out between him and his uncle about whether or not to invade the planet. Once he got there, he fell in love with Rita Carter and had David with her, but his uncle was still looking for him, so to protect his family, David's dad went on the run. But the rebel aliens came after them anyway, and during the struggle, both David's mom and her attackers disappear, leaving David alone. Now David has to come to terms with his alien heritage and go forth to fulfill his destiny. Now I admit, when I first started watching this show, I thought it was going to be really boring. It starts off with a lot of exposition and technobabble, and I'm not really that into sci-fi stuff. I was worried this show would be a little too much Star Trek for me, but once it put its foot on the gas, it did not let up, and boy is it a ride. This thing is paced like a roller coaster. Something is always blowing up or transforming or fighting or racing, and as it goes on it just gets more and more crazy. And although I don't think it's the best thing out there, it's a really fun time. It's hard to even believe this show exists. A primetime animated show that looks like this, sounds like this? It's a one-of-a-kind show and it's fascinating to see. Even though it's a TV show, it kind of feels more like a movie. They even aired the episodes in 1-hour-long chunks. We get to see David as he travels the world, both fighting and evading his enemies, both alien and Earth-based, and learning how to use his newly discovered powers. Along the way, he gains new allies in the form of Doc, another alien who sided with David's dad, Phil Stark, a CIA agent that sides with David after discovering corruption in the government, and Wraith, the former mentor of David's dad. There's a real sense of progression in this show, and although the pacing can be kinda fast, there's always something interesting going on. To be honest though, when I say interesting, I mean crazy. This show is weird. Like how David has this special glove that can shoot lasers and increases latent telepathic powers. But more often than not, he just gets by throwing a good punch. Like imagine having this cool space weapon and saying, nah, I'm good, I'ma stick with the haymakers. And whenever he does use his powers, it's the funniest thing ever. Because they always look weak, but they have such a crazy effect. Like throwing a rock at a plane and causing it to explode. Also this part that has to be seen to be believed. Okay. So he's being like chased by this car, right? Like this is just it's a car chase, right? And then you just see this dude just like he's shooting at him. He's using a real gun. So what does he do, right? He sees tumbleweeds. And what do you think he's gonna do with those tumbleweeds? You won't believe it. Just look at this. He grabs a tumbleweed. This is a tumbleweed, mind you. And he shoots it at the car. What do you think's gonna happen? Not that, right? What happened? What did he do? That's impossible. This show is a trip. It's crazy. A tumbleweed did that. And so much more crazy stuff happens. David joins the rebellion, he meets the president, he watches a dude get ripped in half, and a lot of this is just kind of inherently funny because you have this Spielberg whimsical soundtrack playing in the back. It's like almost a parody, and it's impossible not to have a good time watching it. The show also looks pretty good too. It looks like those cartoons that were being made at the time out of blockbusters. You know, stuff like Men in Black and Godzilla Godzilla. It's all really detailed with really pronounced shadows. Even in the middle of the day it looks overcast. Gotta keep that mood up, I guess. The animation itself is pretty good, being the second show to be produced by DreamWorks Television Animation. Just think, if this had never been made, we might not have gotten Father of the Pride. I don't even want to imagine what kind of sick world that looks like. The only problem is that because this show was never released on any kind of home media, at least to my knowledge, the only way to watch it is through recordings. And there's a heavy ghosting effect that takes a bit of getting used to. The character designs are also a thing that takes a little getting used to. Everyone has a 5 head and huge eyes. It's not the best, but it's also not terrible. There's also a lot of CGI and it has not aged well. But overall, I had a blast watching this thing. It somehow takes itself too seriously and not seriously at all. And even though I was laughing through a lot of it, I actually got invested in the plot. I like this one, though critics at the time tore it apart, calling the plot thin and saying that the cartoon left viewers bored. They couldn't have been watching the same cartoon as me, man. How are you bored watching a show that has tumbleweeds made out of nitroglycerin? Maybe you're the problem at that point.
Am I the only one who understands the complexities of this ambitious cinematic masterpiece? This movie isn't stupid! You're stupid!
They actually edited the show down into a kid-friendly version and plopped it on the Kids WB, which is even stranger because I was definitely watching Kids WB at the time, and I don't remember a frame of this show. But I'm glad I've seen it now. This show was one giant weird experiment, stuffed to the brim with action, aliens, and explosions, and what it lacks in coherence, it makes up for in entertainment value. Sadly, the show ended on a cliffhanger, but with today's audience being more used to shows like this now, I'd say this is a perfect time to bring it back. But I doubt old Stevie Spill wants to. Let's be honest, by now he could have paid for the whole thing by himself. If he wanted it back, it would be back. Case closed. But I'm glad we got what we got, because this is more than a show. It's an experience. And those are the WB primetime cartoons. What a great assortment of cult hits. But what strikes me as weird is that they just kept making these expensive shows just to cancel them all after 13 episodes. Heck, except for Invasion America, none of them even got to finish their run on the WB. They all had to air their unaired episodes on Adult Swim, which is where I'm sure most people were introduced to the shows. They were all just treated so terrible, and even when they weren't, the WB was just making stupid mistakes. Like, why was Mission Hill, a show about a lazy white dude, paired up with the Wayans Bros, the Jamie Foxx show, and the Steve Harvey show? What kind of block is that? Never seen a schedule give off this kind of energy before. But none of these shows deserve to be forgotten. Just because the WB didn't know the value of what they had, doesn't mean that value went unnoticed. These shows had great animation, interesting characters and scenarios, and groundbreaking art styles. One was even basically the first of its kind, and it's that innovation and creativity that led me to want to make this video, because these shows are still loved and remembered by a lot of people. Even if they didn't have a home on the WB, they definitely have a home in the hearts of all the fans keeping their legacy alive. Now drop those Baby Blues episodes, I know you got them.